What's up, everybody? It's your boy Clint from the Die Hard MMA podcast. This is the show you've all been waiting for. It is the Friday undefeated post weigh-in show for UFC Vegas 35, the Ultimate Fighter finale, and I am pumped up. We got a lot to talk about for this card. Hit the like button for me, subscribe if you haven't already, and let's freaking go. First fight of the night, we are kicking this thing off. Martinez taking on Guido Canetti. First bad thing of the day. We've got Martinez coming in at 140. That's right, he blew straight on through 135, straight on through 136. He is over by a full 4 freaking pounds, and he looked dead on the scales. Now, I think that this was just shame causing him to look bad on the scales. I'll get to that. Guido Canetti came in at 135 and a half. Looked excellent. Big smile, big flex. He's looking good. He looks like he's ready to rock. Now, when they got to the face-offs, Martinez is massive. I don't know how much longer he's going to survive at 135. He's probably going to have to move up because this kid is huge. There's a massive difference in the energy from weigh-in to face-off for Martinez. We talked several times, a lot of it. You all know me. I love to do the tinfoil hat. I love to get in here and fade these people that had bad weight cuts and tough misses and look bad. Martinez was a completely different person just from when he weighed in to when he got to his opponent. And the fact that he stopped at 140 and he came in super early for weigh-ins, this is one of those spots where I am 90% certain that he knew he wasn't going to make weight. He's too big for the division. He knew it was a bad thing heading in there already, and they cut it short. So instead of him sucking himself down, instead of him having a hard time, instead of him running on fumes, he's going to have extra pop in his punches. He's going to have extra power in his hands. He's not going to be sucked out, withdrawn, tired, struggling in that fight. He's going to probably operate better because he has this extra weight on him. This was a very intense face-off. Guido was intense and ready to go to war. So was Martinez. This is not an alarm bells, everybody bet on Guido Canetti spot, in my opinion. If anything, it's a double down on Martinez by knockout type of situation for me. The spot I was looking at here was violence. I'm looking at the 1.5, maybe the under 1.5 at -120. I don't think Guido Canetti can survive one round with this kid, if I'm being honest. And if I'm wrong, if Martinez does have some issues, if he does have some problems, if the weight cut was bad, if he can't get Guido Canetti out of there early, then he probably does slow down, cave in, and get finished himself in the second round. Now, you'd be buzzing it pretty close to that 1.5 rounds. We're not getting a nice, juicy 2.5 in this spot, but I think you can parlay the fight doesn't go the distance. I'm pretty sure that's not happening. If you want to take a stab with Guido Canetti, I'd almost look at him by decision, but I'm pretty sure that Martinez is coming in, and I think he's coming in hot tomorrow. So that is the read on the very first fight of the night. I still don't have a bet on that one, mind you. I might add that under 1.5, but at this stage, I'm staying off. Next up, we got Jamal Emmers taking on Pat Sabatini. Jamal Emmers and Sabatini both weighed in at 145.5. Emmers absolutely shredded. He looks in the best shape I think I've seen him in ever. Really ready to go. Might have added a little bit of muscle. Last guy to weigh-ins gave a big flex. I love his hair. Pat Sabatini came in. He's well muscled. It's another one of these stocky little brick dudes. No issues on his side of things. When they face off, Jamal Emmers obviously taller, longer. Pat shorter, thicker. Good face off. Very respectful. I'm ready to rock on this one. I got Jamal Emmers at -140 a little earlier in the week. I still like that spot. I just think Pat's going to have a hard time getting this kid down. And when he has a hard time getting him down, he's going to struggle with him on the feet. J.J. Aldrich taking on Vanessa Demopoulos. J.J. Aldrich came in at 125. Vanessa came in at 125.5. Now, J.J. did the classic one-arm flex and pose. She looked very relaxed. She looked good. And honestly, she looks like she's in the best shape of her life. Now, this may sound weird. J.J. Aldrich is not a physical specimen. She is not the kind of fighter that lights you up on the scales, but she's showing some muscle. She's showing some abs. You can see a little vein popping here or there, and that's something that we do not see from this physically unassuming fighter. We just never have her entire career. So I'm a little impressed with the things that we are seeing. I think that she's physically ready to rock in this spot. Now, Vanessa Demopoulos, she's coming up to 125. She usually fights at 115. She looked pretty strained on the scale. She actually looked looked like she was pretty tired. Now, she's thick. She's well muscled. She flexed, and she's got some big old biceps on her. This girl is strong, and I do understand that. So she may have actually still had a bit of a rough cut based on what we saw on the scales this morning. When they face off, though, JJ's a full head taller. I mean, this is not a small size discrepancy. This is not a small difference in these two women. JJ is big. JJ is really big in this spot. Vanessa's going to have a hard time dealing with the height and the reach of JJ Aldrich, and I think she might even have a hard time with the power of JJ Aldrich. Now, I think Demopoulos' plan, obviously, is to get this to the ground and grapple, but it's going to wear her out unless she gets JJ out of there with a very, very early submission that, personally, I don't see happening. This is a spot where I kind of like fight doesn't go the distance. I like under 2.5 at a nice fat plus 280. I like JJ inside the distance, and I'm going to take a flyer on JJ by submission probably, which is like 16-1 in a bunch of places. Now, that line has been beat to hell. I called this out on the podcast. 20-1, they opened this bad boy. 20-1, and it's all the way down to 8-1 in some spots. So I kind of let the secret out early. Some books are still giving us 10, 12, 16-1, but most of them are hovering around that 8 or 9-1 spot. So y'all suck, because I can't get those early lines, and some of you probably have that ticket sitting in your pockets. You're welcome. I expect a Venmo tip when that hits. Next up, Dustin Jacoby, Darren Stewart. Dustin Jacoby came in at 203.5. Interesting that he came in completely under the 205 limit. These guys are both 185ers, so not incredibly surprising, but still. Darren Stewart made 204.5. Dustin Jacoby came in great shape. I mean, he's rocking abs and everything. This guy's ready to go. He looked fantastic on the scales this morning. There's no other way for me to say it. Now, Darren Stewart, he looked bored. He's relaxed as always. Business as usual. He's been here a million times before, but his back is against the wall, and you could really see that at the face-offs. Now, these guys were, relatively respectful, but Stewart stepped in on him. He's trying to get fired up. He's trying to get ready to go. He's got a fight tomorrow, and he's a guy that works off of emotion. Dustin Jacoby, much taller than his opponent. This is another one where it looks like a 205er taking on a 185er. Now, obviously, we know Darren Stewart is extremely explosive, and he's more the short and thick type of fighter. So, can't really say that the size difference is going to be anything that we really need to worry about here, except for maybe the reach. This is a spot where I think it's Dustin Jacoby or pass. I think you got to, hold your nose and go with the favorite. Darren Stewart does not have a good record of competition in the UFC. He's struggled against that tough record of competition in the UFC. He's a big dog here. A loss is going to get him chopped. And he's talking about coming in and going to war. So, I mean, if you think Stewart's going to win this thing, you might as well take him by knockout, because his usual thing is coming in, gripping people, grinding them, trying to slow them down, win a decision, that kind of thing. I don't think that's going to work with Dustin Jacoby. Jacoby's got good gas. He knows how to defend the takedown, he knows how to extend the fight, and then he just puts it on you in the second and third rounds when you start to slow down. Darren Stewart, tough guy to finish, but I kind of think Dustin Jacoby might get him out of there, especially if Darren Stewart comes in winging bombs. If he comes in for a fight of the night, if he comes in looking to kill, then he may end up going out on his shield. The 2.5 right now is minus 170 to the over, plus 150 to the under. If I was going to play this fight, I probably would look at that under at plus 150, the under 2.5. I feel like that's the most value spot you might be able to take. Yeah, Dustin Jacoby could win a decision, and Darren Stewart could be durable enough to hang in there. But with everything Darren's been saying in his interviews, with everything he's been talking about, with the chinks in the armor we've seen from him, with him getting hurt, and with his offensive firepower, yeah, I think he's probably coming kill or be killed in this spot. Sam Alvey taking on Wellington Turman. Both guys came in at 185.5. Classic Sam Alvey. Big smile. Looked a bit rough. We know that getting down to 185 is not easy for this man, even though, once again, kind of like JJ Aldrich, he's just not the most physical specimen you've ever seen up there. He's a big dude, but he doesn't look like the shredded guys we see struggle on the scales. Wellington Turman came in 185.5 as well. Good shape. Quick on and off the scale. Not much to talk about with Wellington Turman. He really looked like he was in and out of there. Now, when they face off, there was a big size advantage for my boy Sam Alvey. I mean, he does look like a 205er fighting a 185er in this spot. It was classic Sam Alvey again. He's got that smiley face shaved in the back of his head. He's making Dana White and his opponent laugh and smile. Having a good time up there. I love Sam. I love the energy that he brings. And this is his spot, folks. I put this out earlier in the week. I already got Sam Alvey. I think I got plus 130 or plus 135. I can't remember which one it it was. But I'm going to go ahead and double down. This is the post-weigh-in read right here. The line has gotten away from me. A lot of money, a lot of support has come in on Sam Alvey, and I'm going to take another taste at plus 115. I'm going to have 2 units on Sam Alvey's money line, and guys, I may be adding another unit on Sam Alvey by knockout because I simply think he rolls here. There is an opportunity for him to win a grappling, heavy, low-volume decision, and that's why I'm sticking more to the money line than just going, boats and hose on the inside the distance prop. But I am going to play some of that knockout because they've got Sam Alvey by KO at like plus 310, and that's egregious, especially going against a guy that's coming off back-to-back bad knockouts, one of them over a guy who's not even a power puncher, and then one of them being 2 months ago, where I've got to wonder how much he's recovered from that. This is Sam Alvey for me all day. The wrong guy's favored. He's bigger. He's stronger. He's going to have a great offensive edge here in the striking, and then he also has the takedown defense to really stuff everything Wellington Turman is bringing to the table. I think Sam rolls. Next fight up, we've got Alessio Di Chirico taking on Abdul Razak Al-Hassan. This is a fight where both men came in at 185.5. It looks like Alessio Di Chirico's been hitting the gym. My dude added some muscle there. He looked good. No issues for him on the scales at all. He never seems to struggle. He's not a massive 170-pounder, but he seems to make it relatively well comfortably. Abdul Razak Al-Hassan, a 170 fighter who's moved up to 185, really on the chopping block here. Got to get a win, and he was thick. I mean, he's always thick. We know that. But 185, he's got some extra layer on him. Absolute physical specimen. Nothing much else there to say. When they face off, big size advantage for my guy Alessio Di Chirico. I've got him locked up in a parlay. I'm ready to roll there. I see no issues here. He's got to survive round 1. That's all it comes down to. If Alessio Di Chirico gets out of round 1, he should just be able to maul Abdul Razak Al-Hassan for the rest of the fight. And he's shown himself to be relatively tough and durable, so I don't think that's going to be much of an issue. I like Di Chirico here. Not a huge fan of the price tag, but like I said, got him locked up in a parlay. Next up, Makhmud Muradov taking on Gerald GM3 Meerschaert. We've got Muradov coming in at 184.5. Meerschaert 185 on the dot. Now, Muradov is shredded. I tweeted a picture of him a little earlier in the week where he's just absolutely unreal in good shape right now. Gave a huge flex. No issues from him. Gerald Meerschaert, to his credit, looks absolutely dialed in for this spot. He does look like he's in the best shape I've ever seen him in. He sounds focused. I listened to his interviews. He got the monkey off his back his last fight out, and he's ready to rock here in this spot. Decent size advantage for Makhmud Muradov. Both guys looking extremely confident. This is going to be a good fight. Now, Makhmud is a massive favorite. I got in much earlier in the week, and I did parlay Makhmud Muradov with Alessio Di Chirico. That price is not going to be nearly as good if you want to make the same parlay today. But I still think it's the right move. This line is getting into banana peel territory, though, with Makhmud Muradov being a minus 650, minus 700 favorite. Like, that's just asking for someone to shit the bed. We cannot look past the fact that Gerald Meerschaert is going to have a significant submission advantage here. I think Muradov is savvy enough to keep this fight standing, keep it in his realm, and work it that way. He's going to have a solid size advantage. I do think he's going to knock out Gerald Meerschaert at some point in this fight. However, we can't disrespect Gerald Meerschaert, and if you want to take a sprinkle on that plus 450, that line is super wide, and if you want to take a shot on his submission prop or something like that, I mean, that's his path to victory here. So I wouldn't hate anybody taking a slight little poke on a massive, massive underdog who's a proven commodity at the UFC level. Andre Petroski taking on Micheal Gilmore. Petroski came in at 185.5. This dude gave a massive flex. He is a brick shit house. No issues, though, for him. Micheal Gilmore came in at 184, and he's in great shape. He gave a solid flex. This guy looks good, too. And honestly, when they faced off, here's the thing that really blew me away. Size advantage Gilmore. I thought that Andre Petroski was going to have a significant bulk advantage here, but Micheal Gilmore is just as big, just as powerful. And this is one of those spots where everybody and their mom is on Andre Petroski by submission. Andre Petroski round 1. He's another 500 favorite, another minus 550. He popped up to minus 600 in one spot. I would caution everybody here. I mean, Micheal Gilmore, we know he struggles with the submission defense. We know he struggles with the takedown, and that's what Petroski does. But Petroski, he's got a bad gas tank. This guy slows down. This guy gasses out. If Gilmore survives round 1, he is suddenly going to be extremely live in this spot. And don't forget, he made a short notice debut on the Contender Series, filling in for somebody. He was there in a hotel room hoping he got called. He was not in the training room with everybody else. He came in on 1 day notice. This could be your banana peel spot for the week. And I wouldn't even hate a shot on Micheal Gilmore. I may be sprinkling myself just because I think that the size advantage for Petroski being gone makes a huge difference. He's obviously more skilled. He's obviously more talented. And this one may be one of those ones that looks stupid in hindsight if I do take the shot on Micheal Gilmore. But at plus 400, I mean, you've only got to hit like 1 out of 5, 1 out of 6 of these things to break even. So it may be worth a little bit of a sprinkle on Gilmore because he's going to have a full camp coming into this one. And I assume we'll see a better version of him here. Next up, we got Kevin Lee taking on Daniel Rodriguez. This one's fun. Kevin Lee came in at 170.5. D-Rod made 171. Kevin Lee gave a huge flex, and this guy is another brick shithouse. He's another guy that is in incredible shape, always has been at 155, struggled to make the weight, and he really looks like he's filled out at 170. He popped up to 170 for one fight before against RDA, and that was kind of a short notice, just, don't change much of anything, take the fight situation. He's been off for a full year at this point, really working, really exercising, lifting. Like, he is making a true transition to 170 pounds at this point, and you can tell based on how he looked on the scales. Daniel Rodriguez came in, and he came in near the end of the scales. He looked really sucked out. If I'm being honest, Daniel Rodriguez did not look great on the scales today, and he is taller than Kevin Lee, but not by nearly as much as I expected. I thought he was going to have a significant size advantage. He's not that much bigger. Lee is not small in this fight. Lee was actually kind of looking Rodriguez up and down, like doing this thing at him, and D-Rod seemed to take that very personally. They had a really heated face-off, and I think mental advantage here goes to Kevin Lee. I absolutely think Kevin Lee is kind of living in Daniel Rodriguez's head at this moment. D-Rod really looked upset had everything was going on for the face-off here. I talked about it earlier in the week that how do you possibly make Kevin Lee a minus 150 favorite in this spot? But the longer I think about it, the longer I look at it, he's fought a significantly higher level of competition than Daniel Rodriguez does. This is basically a step down in competition level for Kevin Lee. Shout out to my guy Cody Safdie, Dogger Pass podcast. I was listening to a lot of the things that he was saying in this matchup, and they just rang so true to me. Kevin Lee's going to have a very significant grappling advantage in this spot. I know Daniel Rodriguez is a BJJ black belt, and he can't be trifled with. But Kevin Lee is not an easy guy to submit. This is a 15-minute fight, not a 25-minute fight. So if he has any gas issues, they're not going to rear their heads within that 15-minute window. I think Kevin Lee can probably body Daniel Rodriguez. And if Rodriguez is slow, if he has a tough time based on how he looked on the scales today, Kevin Lee could just run him over. So I'm kind of leaning more and more Kevin Lee the longer the week goes here in this spot. I don't know that I'm betting him because, again, minus 150. I have a hard time laying chalk on Kevin Lee after he's had such a long layoff, but I have always been a Kevin Lee truther. I've always been a believer that this kid is worthy of being a top-tier talent in the UFC and could potentially challenge for a title someday if he gets out of his own way, if he puts it all together and gets over those mental hurdles. He's such a Jekyll and Hyde fighter. But when he shows up, this kid could win a belt. And I think he's showing up on Saturday. So for me, it's Kevin Lee or pass. Next fight up, we got Ricky Turcios taking on Brady Hiestand, and this is a spot that I've been waiting to talk to you all about. I hope a lot of people see this, and I hope a lot of people go to my Twitter after this one because I'm full sell mode here. Ricky Turcios came in at 135. Brady Hiestand came in 135.5. Ricky's got a big old smile, looked relieved when he made weight, no real issues. Brady Hiestand looked solid, excellent shape. This kid looks fantastic on the scales. When they face off, Ricky was intense. Brady was trying to fool around, mess with him from their Ultimate Fighter time, and Ricky was really having none of it. And that's something that I like backing Ricky here in this spot. However, Brady had a slight size advantage in this fight, and that's something I wasn't expecting. I kind of thought that Ricky was going to be the bigger man of the two, and I know that the grappling advantage, the wrestling goes to Brady, and that was kind of my concern, but I thought Brady would slow down. I thought he would have a bit of a tough time, and then maybe Ricky could take over rounds 2 and 3. So I have 3.5 units on Ricky Turcios here. Full sell, folks. I'm cashing out. I'm going to bet Brady Hiestand at plus 135. I know some books have the cash out feature, and if you tailed me on Ricky, I do apologize for steering you wrong in this spot, but I think we're on the wrong side, and more so than being on the wrong side, I think it's a bad bet. Even if Ricky is to win this fight, it's going to be him falling behind in the first round, coming back in the second round, or maybe relying on being down 2 rounds and getting a finish in that third when Brady slows down, and I don't know that any of those things actually happen, and laying minus 175 in a spot where you're going to have to count on a guy to come back like that, that's just a bad bet. This is a mistake. I should not have bet this, and I especially should not have bet this much. So I'm going to go ahead and throw 2.25 units, I think is what I figured it out to be, 2.3 units on Brady Hiestand at plus 135 to essentially neutralize the Ricky bet. If Ricky does end up coming through and winning this fight, I'm going to lose about 0.2 units, something like that on it. And then if Brady Hiestand wins, I'm going to win like $5. It's going to be essentially like a wash on Brady actually coming through for the win. So I'm just getting completely off of this fight. I honestly expect Brady to win because he probably does bank those first 2 rounds. And this is a young kid that's making a lot of improvements. I expect his gas tank to look a little bit better. So if he's able to hang on, if he doesn't get finished in that 3rd round, he more than likely wins this fight. And I'm okay with just stepping away from it is the big thing. I think this was a poor bet. I think it was a bad bet to make. And you should be betting the dog in this spot if you're going to bet anything. So don't lay this chalk. Get off Turcios. Even if he wins, I don't think it's a good spot to back him. And I apologize. Bryan Battle taking on Gilbert Urbina in the co-main event here. Bryan Battle came in at 185.5. Urbina came in at 186. Battle seemed uninterested, if I'm being honest. He looked like he was a little rough on the scales. Now, this is another guy that's not super imposing on the scales or anything like that. He's a young fighter, so, maybe his body evolves a little bit in the coming years, but he looked like he had a bit of a tough weight cut. He didn't really look like he wanted to be there, and that's a tidbit concerning. Now, Gilbert Urbina, on the flip side, looked fantastic. Solid shape, looked great, ready to go. This was an excellent face-off, and Urbina actually has a slight size advantage. This is a spot where the one loss that Bryan Battle has is by submission. He's facing a guy that's going to have a size advantage, a grappling advantage, and has no problem backpacking people until they give up a choke. I think that this is another dog or pass spot. I think the world is just counting out Gilbert Urbina. And even though in the Monday podcast, I kind of picked Bryan Battle, but I didn't really have a whole lot of backing behind that. I was just kind of like, I don't really want to bet this one, but Bryan, sure. I think Urbina is the side here. It's super close. This is low-level MMA. You don't really know what's going to happen, but I kind of feel like Gilbert Urbina really is the spot here. And I might take him, by submission, because that's like plus 650 or something crazy like that. That's his best path to victory. And if you're giving me 7-1, 6.5-1 on him getting the thing he's most likely going to win with, yeah, that's the side I'll take for sure. So I think Gilbert Urbina probably is the play. Dog or pass for me in the co-main event. Everything I'm seeing on the scales, I thought Bryan Battle was going to have a toughness advantage. I thought he was going to have a height and a reach and a size advantage. Maybe he does. Maybe he does have the toughness advantage. But a lot of people were talking about Urbina not liking the shots coming his way. Well, remember, those shots were coming from Gore, the kid that we all thought was going to run away with this show. Kid hits like an absolute truck. Does Battle hit as hard as Gore does? I don't think so. Everyone's talking about how Gore was going to run through Battle if that was going to be the final. Why do we think Battle hits as hard as Gore does all of a sudden? I just think that Gilbert Urbina is very live in this co-main event. Main event time, Edson Barboza taking on Giga Chikadze. Barboza 145, Giga 145.5. Edson Barboza absolutely shredded. We know this. He's a Jose Aldo type. This guy can suck himself down, make that scale weight, and then get out of there, somehow blow up and look like a monster on fight night. I'm not fading him this time. I've learned from my mistakes. He moved well. Classic Barb. No issues. Giga Chikadze looked excellent. He made a statement. He was first to the scale. This guy is dialed in. He looks angry. He's got a bit of a chip on his shoulder this week. Intense face-off between these guys. Both of these men absolutely dialed in. They size up extremely well with one another. I mean, it's almost a 1-to-1 ratio type of situation, and they both were looking fire at each other. This is such a good fight. I can't wait for this main event, and I'm staying off it. That's all it comes down to. All of Twitter is on Edson Barboza Jr. in this spot, and Giga still is like a minus 105. Every time Edson Barboza gets to minus 120 or minus 125, the buyback hits on Giga. Like, the sharp bettors out there, the respected money that the bookies actually respect, is keeping this line at a pick'em. As soon as Giga hits plus money, he's getting smashed. And that makes me extremely nervous. I know a lot of people, a lot of sharp bettors I respect, my guest on Monday, that are extremely high on Edson Barboza in this spot. And I've told you guys time and time again how much I love these Georgian warriors, and you simply do not stand in front of these Georgian warriors. Giga Chikadze is going to be given a kickboxing fight in this matchup, and that's where he shines. So I'm having a hard time betting against him here because we know Edson Barboza doesn't really go to the grappling the way we'd expect. This is Giga's time to step up, show himself off on the big stage, and even though Edson Barboza is a proven commodity, I don't want to take him against a rising talent like Giga Chikadze. So total pass for me. I do still lean Barboza, but I think the bet would be whoever you can get for plus money, and at this stage, that's Giga. I kind of lean the under 4.5. I do think that somebody eventually is going to get cracked and finished the way that these guys fight, and I do think that the championship rounds are a massive question mark for a guy like Giga. I think both them are fully capable of a third, fourth, or fifth round finish. I don't know if Giga's going to have the gas to do that when it gets there, but he's trained for a 5-round fight for the first time in his life. We all talked about how he gassed out in the third round. I don't know if he's going to do that this time. He probably knows better. He probably knows to have paced himself here. So, I don't know. I kind of tempted on Giga by KO at plus 240 if I'm being honest. But I more than likely am going to just completely pass on this main event. Under 4.5 I think is maybe the spot that I would look at. That way I don't have to pick a side. And as long as somebody gets clipped and taken out early, I'm good to go. That's the Undefeated post weigh-in show, folks. I got a lot of action for you today. I got a lot of information for you today. The big spots I'm looking at, adding on my guy Smiling Sam Alvey. That's absolutely a post weigh-in read. Getting off of Ricky Turcios, hedging out of that, cashing out of that, whatever you got to do to get your money out of there and keep it safe. That's a big post weigh-in read, absolutely. And then I think JJ Aldrich, the size advantage is a big one that we got to talk about. Gilbert Urbina and Micheal Gillmore both being live dogs in those spots. Martinez potentially taking the advantage of the extra weight. Those are the big spots that we talked about today that I think you should seriously consider if you're putting money on UFC Vegas 35. That's the show, folks. Good luck. Hit me with a retweet. Smash that like button for me. I hope you cash tons of tickets on Saturday. I'm planning on doing the same. Good luck. Let's roll.